As the only man in the entire company, I was assigned to the division of the ice-cold president, a woman known only as the Iron Queen. On my first day, she called me into her office, locked the door, and threw a medical report at me. The results were displayed in bold: sperm motility, ss+. Before I could process what was happening, she was standing in front of me, unbuttoning her silk blouse one button at a time, her eyes burning with a feverish intensity one had never seen before. "My husband is sterile, and I need an heir. I'll give you $10 million to get me pregnant within 3 months. No." She let out a cold laugh, pulling a stack of photos from her desk drawer. They were all of my little sister being bullied at school. Or you can choose to watch your sister get forced to drop out. My name is Ethan Miller, a recent college graduate. Landing a job at Aura Beauty Group, one of the country's top cosmetics conglomerates, was a stroke of unbelievable luck. Being summoned by the group's founder herself, the 28-year-old president Sophia Klein, on my very first day, felt like the peak of that luck. Until I stepped in her office. The door clicked shut behind me, the lock engaging electronically. Sophia Klein sat in front of a massive floor-to-ceiling window. The New York City sunlight framed her in gold, but it did nothing to melt the frost that seemed to radiate from her. This was the legendary Iron Queen, a titan of industry known for her ruthless tactics and heartless decisions. She didn't waste a single word, tossing a file onto the mahogany desk in front of me. It was my pre-employment physical. At the very bottom, a single line was highlighted in red, bolded text: sperm motility, ss+. My mind went blank as I tried to understand what she was implying. She had already risen from her chair and was walking toward me. The scent of an expensive perfume, mixed with her own uniquely cold aura, filled my nostrils, creating an overwhelming sense of pressure. Right in front of me, she began to unbutton her silk blouse, one button at a time. The skin she revealed was so pale it was almost blinding in the sunlight. Her eyes were no longer the legendary ice-cold stare, but were now burning with a desperate, frantic heat I couldn't comprehend. "My husband is sterile, and I need an heir," she said, her voice steady but carrying a tone that demanded absolute obedience. "I'll give you $10 million to get me pregnant within 3 months." I was completely stunned, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was more absurd than any movie plot. I instinctively took a step back, shaking my head. "Ms. Klein, this is insane. I can't. No." The corner of Sophia's mouth curled into an icy smirk. She turned, pulled another stack of items from a drawer, and slammed them down in front of me. They were photographs. In every single one, my sister, Chloe, the only family I'd left, was cornered by a group of girls in the same school uniform. The red imprint of a hand was clear on her cheek, her eyes filled with terror and helplessness. The blood rushed to my head. "You investigated me?" Ethan Miller, 22 years old, graduated from CUNY. Parents deceased, lives with and supports his younger sister, Chloe, Sophia recited, her voice like ice laced with venom. "Your sister has been consistently bullied at her school. Her situation is precarious. I can have her expelled immediately, forced out of the city, and ensure she lives in that shadow for the rest of her life." She paused, taking a step closer. Her long, slender fingers tapped against my chest. "Or," she said, enunciating every word, "you can choose to take the $10 million, transfer your sister to Northwood Preparatory Academy, the best private school in the state, and give her a life you could never even dream of providing." My fists were clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. In the face of my sister's tear-streaked face, my dignity and anger were worthless. I stared at Sophia's flawlessly beautiful face and realized for the first time that a devil could truly hide beneath the skin of an angel. After a long moment, I forced a single word through my gritted teeth. "Fine." Sophia smiled, satisfied. She placed a black key card and a car key on the desk. "The Apex on Central Park South, Penthouse A. You'll live there from now on. The car is in a garage. License plate is your birthday. Inside the apartment, you'll find an agreement you are to abide by and a diet plan. Follow them strictly." She rebuttoned her blouse, transforming back into the untouchable, high and mighty Iron Queen. "Remember, Ethan, from this moment on, you are nothing but a tool. Don't get any other ideas." I picked up the thin key card. It felt as heavy as lead, crushing all of my pride beneath its weight. The Apex was in the most exclusive, wealthiest district in New York. Driving the brand-new Porsche into the underground garage, I felt like a car thief. The penthouse was enormous, with 360-degree windows showcasing the most dazzling views of the city skyline. But I was in no mood to appreciate it. This wasn't a home, it was my cage. A document was waiting on the coffee table. The progenitor agreement. It detailed all of my duties: strictly adhere to the schedule and diet, quit smoking and drinking, 3 mandatory fitness sessions per week, and unconditionally comply with all of Sophia Klein's requests. Next to it was a diet plan crafted by a nutritionist, precise down to the gram, for every meal. I was being treated like a prize bull being prepped for breeding. I pulled out my phone and called my sister, Chloe. "Ethan, you're off work? How's the new company? Are your colleagues nice?" Her bright voice chirped from the other end. I walked to the window, looking down at the millions of lights below, trying to keep my own voice steady. "It's great. The company is huge, and my boss seems to think I have a lot of potential." "That's amazing. You're so smart." "Ethan, I knew you'd do great," Chloe said happily. "Oh, by the way, my principal talked to me today. She said there's an opening to transfer to Northwood Preparatory Academy, and she asked if I want to go." "Ethan, that's the best private school in the state. Tuition is like hundreds of thousands a year." Her voice was a mix of excitement and disbelief. I knew this was Sophia's doing. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a giant fist, a dull, aching pain. "Go," I said, my voice firm. "I got a promotion. The company gave me a huge bonus. It's more than enough." "Really? That's fantastic, Ethan." Listening to my sister's cheers, the image of her crying helplessly in those photos flashed before my eyes. I hung up the phone and finally collapsed, slumping onto the cold marble floor. Humiliation, anger, powerlessness. The emotions washed over me, threatening to drown me. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia, concise and cold as always. 9 o'clock tonight. Be clean and wait for me." I stared at the words, feeling like a product with a price tag. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and let the scalding water pour over me. But I couldn't feel any warmth. I scrubbed my body over and over, as if I could wash away the shame that had sunk into my bones. At exactly 9, the electronic lock on the door beeped. Sophia entered. She had changed out of her business attire and was wearing a black silk robe. Her long hair was down, cascading over her shoulders, softening the sharp edges of her daytime persona and adding a seductive nighttime allure. She didn't look at me, walking straight to the wet bar to pour herself a glass of red wine. "Did you read the agreement and the diet plan?" She swirled the glass, the crimson liquid tracing elegant lines against the crystal. "I read them," I said, my voice hoarse. "Then let's begin." She set down her glass and walked toward the bedroom without a backward glance, as if she were simply ordering a routine task to be completed. I followed her, each step feeling like I was walking on shattered glass. The main lights in the bedroom were off, with only a dim, yellow lamp on the nightstand. The atmosphere was so heavy it was hard to breathe. The entire time, we didn't exchange a single word. She kept her eyes squeezed shut, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. I couldn't tell if it was from nervousness or something else. I just felt like a machine, devoid of emotion, executing a cold, sterile command. When it was over, she immediately got up and went to the bathroom. By the time she came out, she was fully dressed again, back to being the impregnable Ms. Klein. She pulled a card from her wallet and tossed it onto the nightstand. "Here's $1 million. Your advance." With that, she turned and left without a hint of hesitation. I sat on the bed, naked, looking at the bank card, feeling pathetic and ridiculous. I picked up my phone and saw a new push notification for page 6. Aura Group President Sophia Klein and husband Julian Vance appear arm in arm at charity gala, dispelling divorce rumors. In the photo, Sophia was on the arm of a refined, handsome man, a polite smile fixed on her face. That man was her sterile husband, Julian Vance. The days that followed were a blur of gilded captivity. I ate according to the diet plan, worked out in the private gym, and waited for Sophia's summons. Her visits were unpredictable. Sometimes it was 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes only once. But every time, it was like a clinical procedure. There were no hugs, no kisses, no shred of warmth. Just the most primitive, direct physical contact. I slowly grew numb. I used the money Sophia gave me to transfer Chloe to Northwood Prep. The security there was top-notch, the faculty was excellent, and Chloe quickly adapted to her new environment. The smile returned to her face. Every time we video chatted, and I listened to her chatter about her new school, I felt that everything I was enduring was worth it. One night, Sophia came over again. She looked exhausted, a flicker of irritation in her brow. As soon as she walked in, she kicked off her heels and threw herself onto the sofa. "Pour me a glass of water," she commanded. I silently poured her a glass of lukewarm water and handed it to her. She took a sip, then irritably tugged at the collar of her dress. This month's window is almost closed, and my ovulation period is about to pass. I remained silent, unsure of what to say. In matters like this, all I could do was cooperate. She suddenly looked up, her eyes scanning me with a look of intense scrutiny. "Ethan, are you deliberately not cooperating?" I frowned. "I'm not." "No," she sneered. "I've seen your medical report. With an SSS plus motility rating, we should have had results by now. Are you playing some kind of game?" What kind of game could I possibly play? I was starting to get angry. This kind of thing isn't a 100% guarantee. I don't care about percentages. Her voice suddenly rose, and she slammed the glass down on the coffee table. "I want a result. 3 months. That was our deal. If I'm not pregnant after 3 months, you and your sister will disappear from New York together." Shards of glass scattered across the floor, just like my fragile self-respect. I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage in my chest. I understand. That night, she was more frantic than ever, as if trying to unleash all her anxiety and pressure. I endured it silently, like a puppet without a soul. Afterward, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep a wink. I started to wonder if there was something wrong with Sophia. Or maybe the story about her husband's sterility was a lie to begin with. Once the thought took root, it began to grow wildly in my mind. I decided I had to do something. I couldn't just be a fool, letting her control me, only to end up discarded without knowing why. A few days later, while Sophia was out, I slipped into her home office. This was a forbidden zone. She had explicitly warned me never to set foot in it. The office was large, with an entire wall lined with bookshelves. I searched carefully, hoping to find some clue. Finally, in a locked drawer, I found an encrypted USB drive. I used my IT skills to crack the password, and what I found inside left me stunned. The drive contained a single folder filled with information about her husband, Julian Vance. Julian, scion of the Vance family, one of New York's most powerful dynasties, had entered into a business-motivated marriage with Sophia 2 years ago. The file showed that a year ago, Julian had been in a car accident that resulted in irreversible damage to his reproductive system. But what struck me as odd was that at the end of the file, there was a copy of Julian's physical exam report from before the accident. On that report, one line stood out: sperm motility, SSS+. Exactly the same as mine. This was no coincidence. Why would Sophia look for someone with a biological profile so similar to her husband's? I kept digging. In the deepest corner of the folder, I found a hidden audio file. I clicked play, and the voices of Sophia and an unknown man filled the room. "Ms. Klein, we've secured the sample. It's a 99.9% match with your husband's pre-accident data. Excellent. What about the candidate? Have you found one?" "We have. His name is Ethan Miller, a recent college graduate. Clean background. And he has a sister who is his weak point. Easy to control. Proceed with the plan. Remember, no one can know about this." The recording ended there. A chilling cold spread through my entire body, as if I had been plunged into an icy abyss. From the very beginning, I was just a carefully selected replacement. The SSS+ rating wasn't a fluke. It was her primary criterion for finding a suitable stud. She didn't want my child. She wanted a child with genes as exceptional as her husband, Julian Vance. She was planning to pass my child off as a true Vance heir. This woman's cunning was terrifying. Just as the shock hit me, the office door was pushed open. Sophia stood in the doorway, her face pale with fury as she looked at me, then at the still open folder on the computer screen. "Who let you in here?" Her voice was as cold as ice. "You've been lying to me the entire time." I stood up, looking her directly in the eye. It was pointless to pretend anymore. A flash of panic crossed Sophia's face, but she quickly regained her composure. She walked toward me, the sharp clicks of her heels on the hardwood floor sounding like they were stomping on my heart. "Lying to you?" she scoffed. "The agreement was perfectly clear. You provide your genetic material, and I pay you. It's an equal transaction." "Equal?" I laughed bitterly. "From the moment you threatened me with my sister, there was nothing equal about this. You just see me as a tool you can manipulate however you want." "Even tools have their hierarchy," Sophia said, her eyes filled with contempt. "To be the father of my child is an honor for you." Onto my ass. The anger I had suppressed for so long finally erupted. "You just wanted to find a substitute to have a baby for your useless husband. You want everyone to think this child is a Vance." My words were like a dagger, striking her precisely where it hurt most. The color drained from Sophia's face. She never expected me to find out so much. "You? What about me?" I advanced on her. "Sophia, aren't you afraid I'll expose this? Let everyone know that the great president of Aura Group was so desperate for an heir she had to hire someone to knock her up? When that happens, How do you think the Vance family will react? Sophia swayed on her feet, clearly shaken by my words. But she was, after all, Sophia Klein. After a moment of weakness, she quickly steadied herself. And you think if you go public, anyone will believe you? She lifted her chin again, resuming her arrogant posture. On one hand, there's a frozen sample my husband left before his accident. On the other, a poor kid who came from nowhere. Who do you think the Vance family and the media will believe? Her words were like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing my fire completely. She was right. I was a nobody. What power did I have to fight her? Besides, Sophia's eyes turned vicious again. If you dare to make a scene, I guarantee your sister will be the first one to pay the price. Chloe again. She always knew exactly how to twist a knife. I stumbled back a step, feeling as if all my strength had been drained. Sophia, what the hell do you want? I don't want anything, Sophia said, walking up to me. She adjusted my collar, a gentle gesture that contrasted sharply with the venom in her words. I just want you to be a good boy and complete our transaction. The moment I'm pregnant, $10 million will be in your account. Then you and your sister will get out of New York and never come back. She looked at me, her eyes holding a warning and something else, a complex emotion I couldn't quite place. Don't push me, Ethan. I can lift you up to heaven, and I can just as easily drag you down to hell. She turned and left, leaving me alone in the vast, empty office. I looked at the SSS Plus report on the screen, and an even crazier idea began to form in my mind. I couldn't wait to be slaughtered. I had to fight back. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment before answering. A man's deep, magnetic voice, tinged with a playful, mocking tone, came from the other end. Mr. Ethan Miller, I presume. This is he. This is Julian Vance, Sophia's husband. My pupils contracted instantly. I know about the arrangement between you and my wife, the man said, his voice calm but exuding a terrifying pressure. Tonight, I'd like to have a chat with you. Sophia's husband, Julian Vance, the man I had only seen in news photos and secret files, was now contacting me directly. My mind raced. How much did he know? How did he find out? What did he want from me? 1,000 questions swirled in my head. Where are you? I asked in a low voice. The coffee shop across the street from your building. The table by the window. I walked to the window, pulled back the curtain, and looked down. Sure enough, a man was sitting at a window table in the coffee shop. He was wearing a well-tailored gray suit, his profile handsome, his aura one of refined power. Even as a silhouette, I could feel the commanding presence of someone used to being in charge. He seemed to sense my gaze, looked up in my direction, and raised his coffee cup with a knowing, meaningful smile. This man was far more dangerous than I had imagined. Why should I meet with you? I said coldly. Because I know your sister, Chloe, isn't having as wonderful a time at Northwood Prep as you think, Julian said, his tone light and breezy, but the words made my heart clench. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. Some problems can't be solved just by changing schools. Mr. Miller, I'll give you 10 minutes. The line went dead. I gripped my phone, my palms slick with cold sweat. Julian Vance's appearance had completely shattered all my plans. He was an invisible web, and Sophia and I were both caught in it. I had no choice. I changed my clothes and hurried downstairs. In the coffee shop, Julian was slowly stirring his coffee. When he saw me, he gestured for me to sit. Mr. Miller, you're calmer than I expected, he said, sizing me up, his eyes as sharp as a hawk's. Mr. Vance, I doubt you asked me here just for a cup of coffee, I said, getting straight to the point. Of course not. Julian set down his coffee spoon and leaned forward slightly. My offer is better than Sophia's. He slid a cashier's check across the table. The number written on it was $30 million. This is yours when the job is done. Additionally, I'll arrange for your sister to attend the best boarding school in Europe and guarantee her financial security for life. I stared at the check, but didn't touch it. And the condition? Simple, Julian said, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Continue your work with Sophia. Let her get pregnant with your child. Then, at the very peak of her success, I will personally expose everything. My mind reeled. But you can't. Be sterile? He chuckled, as if it were the funniest joke he'd ever heard. Ethan, did you really think Sophia chose you just because of your SSS Plus sperm motility? He took out his phone, opened a photo, and slid it in front of me. It was a picture of two teenage boys in matching basketball uniforms, standing side by side, grinning broadly. One of them was a young Julian Vance. The other was a teenage boy who looked remarkably like me. Who is this? My voice came out dry. His name was Leo Foster. My best friend. Julian's eyes grew dark. And Sophia's first love. It's a shame he died a few years ago. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. So that's what this was. I wasn't just a replacement. I was a replacement for a ghost. Sophia didn't just want a child with SSS plus genes. She wanted a child who looked like her lost love and carried her husband's genetic blueprint. A perfect substitute. This woman was completely insane. She thinks I don't know, Julian said, putting his phone away, his tone dripping with sarcasm. She thinks the accident turned me into a useless cripple. So she went through all this trouble to find a perfect vessel like you. So the car accident was a setup? Your sterility is a lie. I finally understood. The accident was real, but the damage wasn't permanent. As for being sterile, he smiled. If I didn't say that, how could I watch such an entertaining show unfold? I looked at the man smiling in front of me, a man whose smile never reached his eyes, and felt a cold dread creep up from my toes. He'd been acting the entire time. He knew about Sophia's plan from the start, but said nothing, letting her walk step by step into the trap he had set. He wanted to wait until the moment she thought she had won, then deliver the most devastating blow, to crush her hopes, trample her dignity, and cast her into utter ruin. So, what's it going to be, Mr. Miller? Julian's voice pulled me from my shock. Will you choose to be used and then discarded by Sophia? Or will you partner with me, take $30 million, and give yourself and your sister a brand new future? It was a deal with the devil, but I knew I had no other choice. Between Sophia and Julian, two master manipulators, I was just a pawn that could be sacrificed at any moment. To survive and protect my sister, I had to side with the one who seemed more likely to win. Fine, I'm in, I said, looking Julian in the eye. But first, you have to guarantee my sister's safety. A wise choice, Julian said with a satisfied smile. He made a call right in front of me. The situation at Northwood Prep? Handle it. I don't want to hear any more bad news regarding Chloe Miller. His tone was casual, but it carried an undeniable authority. After hanging up, he looked at me. Now you can rest easy. When I returned to the penthouse, Sophia was already there. She was sitting on the sofa, her face dark as she watched me. Where have you been? Just went for a walk. I lied, my expression neutral. Ethan, I warned you not to play any games, she said, her eyes sharp with suspicion. What game could I possibly play? I walked up to her and, mimicking her earlier move, reached out and tilted her chin up. Ms. Klein, don't forget, you're the one who needs me right now. Until I get the results I want, you should probably be a little nicer to me. Sophia's body went rigid. She was clearly stunned that I would dare to speak to her like that. The fury in her eyes was about to erupt, but in the end, she restrained herself. You'd better hope so, she said, pushing my hand away. She turned and went into the bedroom. Watching her go, I knew the game had truly begun. From now on, I was no longer a lamb to the slaughter. I was a wolf, navigating the treacherous terrain between two predators. I became a double agent. To Sophia, I was still the tool, forced by money and threats to obey her commands. To Julian, I was his pawn, placed next to his enemy, ready to deliver the fatal blow at any moment. Julian's power was immense. The very next day, Chloe's principal called me personally, his voice obsequious and fawning. He informed me that the students who had been bullying Chloe had been expelled for gross misconduct and had made a public apology to her. Chloe's life at school was transformed overnight. When we video chatted, I could see a genuine lightness and happiness in her that hadn't been there before. It only deepened my fear of Julian. He could effortlessly solve problems that were insurmountable for me, which meant he could just as effortlessly destroy me. And Sophia knew nothing about it. She probably assumed her previous warnings had been effective. That night, when she arrived, she seemed to be in a good mood. It seems your sister's issues have been resolved, she said while taking off her shoes, her tone carrying a hint of patronizing pride. See, Ethan, as long as you're obedient, I can give you and your sister everything you could ever want. I looked at her superior expression and laughed coldly to myself. You gave? If it weren't for Julian, Chloe would still be getting tormented. But I put on a look of profound gratitude. Thank you, Ms. Klein. I understand. I promise I'll be fully cooperative from now on. Sophia was very pleased with my cooperation. She seemed to let her guard down around me. Our routine continued as before, but now I started to observe her. I found that she wasn't as heartless as she appeared. In moments of passion, she would unconsciously grip the bedsheets, her long lashes fluttering, betraying an inner turmoil and vulnerability. Sometimes, she would arrive early or leave late, sitting alone by the window, staring out at the city lights for hours. In those moments, the armor of the Iron Queen was gone, and she was just a lonely, exhausted woman. As instructed by Julian, I gave him periodic progress reports. She's getting very anxious because she still isn't pregnant. She lost her temper again today, broke a glass. I think she's starting to worry it's a problem with her own body. She made a doctor's appointment. With each report, Julian would let out a satisfied chuckle on the other end of the line. He was like a patient hunter, savoring the process of his prey struggling in a trap. A month passed. Sophia was still not pregnant. Her patience had clearly run out. She became increasingly irritable, and her demands on me grew more and more stringent. She even started monitoring my diet and schedule, having a nutritionist and personal trainer show up at the penthouse daily to ensure my compliance. I felt like the only thing separating me from a literal stud in a cage was the absence of bars. One day, after a brutal session with the trainer, I was sprawled on the sofa when I got a call from Julian. "We can move the plan forward," he said. "What do you mean?" "Sophia can't wait any longer. She went behind my back and contacted some of my family's old allies. She wants to use the pregnancy to win their support on the board of directors and move against me." Julian's voice was laced with a cold, murderous intent. "She's so naive. What do you need me to do?" "Simple. Tonight, she will definitely come to you. Your job is to make her pregnant." I was stunned. "But, no but, Julien cut me off. I've already bribed her doctor. Tomorrow, the doctor will tell her she's pregnant." I drew in a sharp breath. The plan was a seamless, vicious cycle. First, give her the false hope of a pregnancy, making her lower her guard and believe victory was in her grasp. Then, just as she announces the news to the world, using it as leverage against Julian, he would personally expose the entire lie. When that happened, Sophia wouldn't just lose everything. Her reputation would be in tatters. It was brutal. "Ethan, play your part well," Julian reminded me before hanging up. "After this is over, you and your money will get away safely." After the call, I sat on the sofa for a long time without moving. I watched the sky darken outside the window, and for the first time, felt a pang of pity for Sophia. Yes, she used me, threatened me, treated me like a tool. But she was also a desperate person, fighting for survival in a hopeless situation. And Julian, the man who appeared so refined and charming, was the true devil, hiding in the shadows and pulling all the strings. At 8 o'clock, Sophia arrived right on time. She was wearing a red dress and had her makeup done perfectly, as if she were heading to a gala. Her eyes held a look of grim determination, like a soldier going into a final do-or-die battle. "Ethan," she said, her voice hoarse as she walked up to me. "Tonight is the last chance." I looked at her, a storm of conflicting emotions churning inside me. What was I supposed to do? Should I follow Julian's script and push her into the abyss? Or, that night, Sophia was unusually forward and unusually fragile. She held on to me tightly, as if I were the last piece of driftwood in a raging sea. In the darkness, I felt a warm drop of liquid fall onto my shoulder. She was crying. The invincible Iron Queen was actually crying. My heart twisted with a strange, sharp pain. When it was over, she didn't leave immediately as she usually did. Instead, she curled up beside me and quickly fell asleep. Her sleep was restless, her brow furrowed, and tear stains still clung to her long eyelashes. I watched her sleeping face, and for the first time, saw her as just an ordinary woman. One who could feel pain, fear, and sorrow. I didn't sleep at all that night. When dawn broke, Sophia woke up. She seemed startled to find herself in my arms, then quickly scrambled away, her mask of indifference firmly back in place. "Forget about last night," she muttered before disappearing into the bathroom. I knew she was just hiding her own vulnerability. Sophia didn't show up for several days after that. Following Julian's script, I continued to play my part. A week later, I received a call from her. Her voice was trembling with a joy she couldn't suppress. "Ethan, I'm pregnant." I feigned surprise with a sharp, "What?" and then followed up with feigned excitement. "That's fantastic, Ms. Klein. The agreement is terminated." Sophia's voice turned cool and businesslike again. $10 million will be wired to your account within the hour. Pack your things and be out of the apex by the end of the day. From now on, we owe each other nothing. Okay. After hanging up, I stared at the bank notification on my phone. The long string of zeros brought me no happiness. I sent a text to Julian. She took the bait. He replied almost instantly. "Well done. The main event is in 3 days at the Vance family's annual gala." I packed my few belongings and left the golden cage I had lived in for 2 months. As I walked out of the main entrance of the Apex, I glanced back one last time at the enormous windows of the penthouse. They gleamed in the sun like the eye of a giant monster that devoured souls. 3 days later, at the Vance family estate, posing as Julian's driver, I was granted access to the exclusive high society family gathering. The ballroom was filled with a who's who of New York's elite. all mingling under crystal chandeliers. Sophia, dressed in an elegant white gown, was on Julian's arm, a triumphant smile on her face. She looked radiant. Although her stomach was still flat, she would occasionally place a hand on it, a subtle gesture to announce her prize to the world. Julian, for his part, played the role of the devoted husband to perfection, attentive and caring, but his eyes held a cold, venomous glint. I knew the storm was about to break. Sure enough, halfway through the dinner, the patriarch of the family, old Mr. Vance, stood up and cheerfully raised his glass. "Today, I have a wonderful announcement to make," he boomed, his face flush with joy. "The Vance family has a new generation on the way. Sophia is pregnant with our family's first grandson." The room erupted in applause and congratulations. The smile on Sophia's face widened. She shot a triumphant, defiant look at Julian, and Julian simply returned it with a gentle smile. It was time. He raised his own glass and walked to the center of the ballroom. "Thank you all for your kind wishes," he said, his voice amplified by the microphone. "However, before we celebrate, there's something I'd like you all to see." He snapped his fingers. The large screen behind him flickered to life, playing a video. The person in the video was me, talking to one of Julian's men. "Mr. Miller, how did things go?" "Don't worry. Sophia is convinced she's pregnant." "Excellent. Here is the final payment from Mr. Vance." In the video, I accepted a briefcase filled with cash. The entire room fell into a shocked silence, followed by a wave of gasps and whispers. Every eye in the room turned, like daggers, to Sophia. The color drained from her face. She stared at the screen in disbelief, then at me, and finally at Julian, her lips trembling, unable to form a single word. "Sophia," Julian said, walking toward her, his voice soft but every word a poisoned dart. "Did you really think you could find some trash off the street, get pregnant with his bastard child, and get away with stealing the Vance family fortune?" He pulled out another document and threw it in her face. "This is my latest medical report. I, Julian Vance, have never had any fertility problems." He turned to his grandfather and the other guests, his face a mask of anguish. "Grandfather, esteemed uncles, it is my failure. I wasn't able to control my own wife and allowed her to commit such a shameless, disgraceful act. Furthermore," he announced, his voice ringing through the silent hall, "as per our prenuptial agreement, in the case of infidelity, the at-fault party will leave this marriage with nothing and must compensate the other party for all damages. This includes her family's company, Aura Group, and all its assets, which were merged into our family's corporation." The ballroom was dead silent. Everyone was stunned by the shocking reversal. Sophia swayed on her feet, her face as white as a sheet. She was finished. Julian's move was a checkmate, a blow from which she could never recover. I stood in a corner of the crowd, watching it all unfold, feeling no satisfaction, only a deep, endless sense of sorrow. Just as Julian announced his intention to cast her out, Sophia suddenly started to laugh. She laughed loudly, laughing until tears streamed down her face. "Julian, do you really think you've won?" She wiped her tears, pulled a small USB drive from her clutch, and handed it to the event technician. "Please, everyone, I have something I'd like you to see as well." The screen changed again. This time, it showed the bedroom of the penthouse at the apex. The angle was from a tiny, hidden camera on the nightstand. The video showed me and Sophia, but we weren't doing anything illicit. We were sitting on the edge of the bed, negotiating like business partners. "Mr. Miller, this is a frozen sperm sample my husband, Julian Vance, stored before his accident," Sophia's voice said as she handed me a cryogenic vial. "I need you to help me deliver this to the Trinity Women's Hospital Fertility Center and bribe a doctor there to perform an IVF procedure for me. "Why go through all this trouble?" my voice asked from the video. "Because Julian is watching my every move. He wants to catch me cheating so he can take everything from me. This is the only way. I have to make him believe I found another man, so he'll let his guard down." "Then why did you pick me? And why in this manner?" "Because you look like Leo Foster." Sophia's voice in the video was tinged with pain. "Julian knows I never got over him. He wanted to use a man who looked like my first love to provoke me, to humiliate me. I'm just playing his game, using you to make my betrayal utterly convincing to him." The video ended. The room was once again plunged into silence. But this time, all the shocked, contemptuous, and gloating looks were aimed at Julian Vance. Julian's face was even paler than Sophia's had been. He never imagined she had a countermove like this. He thought he was playing chess, but she was playing on a whole other level. This is a fake." Julian's voice was shrill with anger and shock. "She's lying. That child is not mine." Whether it's yours or not can be easily determined by paternity test after the baby is born. Can it? Sophia finally stood up straight, her voice cold and steady. Julian, you meticulously planned this entire scheme just to swallow my family's company whole. But you miscalculated. She turned to the old Mr. Vance, her tone respectful but firm. Grandfather, this child is, without a doubt, Vance blood. As for my marriage to Julian, since it has come to this, I have nothing more to say. Once the child is born, I will file for divorce. But I will not give up a single share of my family's company. The patriarch's face was a thundercloud. The Vance family's reputation had been dragged through the mud. He shot a furious glare at Julian, his grandson who had proven to be nothing but a liability. This family disgrace will not be aired in public. The old man roared, slamming his hand on the table. All of you get out of my sight. The meticulously planned gala ended in a chaotic farce. I slipped out with the crowd, quietly leaving the Vance estate. As I reached the gate, Sophia caught up to me. Ethan. I stopped and turned to face her. Why? She asked, her eyes filled with a complex emotion I couldn't decipher. You could have taken the $30 million, worked with Julian, and destroyed me completely. I guess. I looked at her and gave a self-deprecating smile. I didn't want the biological mother of my future child to suffer such an ugly defeat. Without another word, I turned and disappeared into the night. Yes, I had switched sides. The night Julian told me to play my part well, I went to see Sophia. I told her everything. Julian's entire plan, the story about Leo Foster, the fake sterility. I remember Sophia was silent for a very long time after I finished. She didn't cry or rage. She just stared out the window, her eyes empty. I see, she had said. And from that, our counterplan was born. The video of me taking money was a performance, staged for the spies Julian had watching me. The real conversation that took place in the bedroom was captured by a micro-recorder I carried, becoming the key to Sophia's victory. Why did I help her? I still don't know for sure. Maybe because I saw a reflection of myself in her. We were both people forced into a corner, compelled to put on armor and fight the world to protect the one thing we held most dear. For her, it was the company her father left her. For me, it was my sister's future. We were the same kind of people. After the gala, a seismic shockwave hit New York's high society. For his despicable scheme to frame his wife, Julian Vance was completely stripped of his inheritance by his grandfather and exiled to a foreign branch of the company, forbidden from ever returning. Sophia emerged as the ultimate victor. Not only did she secure the future of her unborn child, but more importantly, with the patriarch's blessing, her company, Aura Group, was spun off from the Vance conglomerate, with full control returned to her. She had become a true queen on her own terms. And I, after playing my part, chose to disappear. I never touched the $10 million Sophia had sent me. Using my own savings, I took Chloe and left New York, moving to a quiet little seaside town. I opened a small bookstore, facing the ocean, where life was simple. Chloe enrolled in the best local high school and became more cheerful and outgoing than ever. We were finally living the peaceful, quiet life I had always dreamed of. I thought I would never cross paths with Sophia Klein again. Until one day, 6 months later. It was a beautiful afternoon. The sun was warm, and I was sitting in a rocking chair in front of the shop, reading a book. A black Bentley pulled up silently and parked at the curb. The door opened, and a woman in a beige trench coat stepped out. It was Sophia. Her baby bump was now noticeable, but her limbs were still slender. She had cut her hair short and wore no makeup. All the sharp, intimidating edges were gone, replaced by a softer aura. She walked up to me and smiled. Long time no see, Ethan. I put my book down and stood up. Ms. Klein, what brings you here? I came to return something to you, she said, pulling a folder from her bag and handing it to me. I opened it. It was a stock transfer agreement. 10% of Aura Group's shares, she said. You earned it. I pushed the folder back to her. I don't need it. It's not for you, Sophia said, looking me in the eyes. It's for your child. My heart skipped a beat. Sophia, we agreed. Yes, we agreed, she interrupted. The transaction was over. We owed each other nothing. But Ethan, this child, he isn't a product of a transaction. He's an unexpected gift. She paused, then continued. After the gala, I went to the hospital for a detailed examination. The frozen sample from Julian. Its viability was practically zero from being stored for too long. So this child was unequivocally mine. I stared at her rounded belly, and a wave of 100 different emotions washed over me. I didn't know what to say. I'm not here to force any responsibility on you, Sophia said, seeming to sense my discomfort. I'm just here to tell you the truth. You have a right to know. What What are your plans? I asked. I'm going to have this baby and raise him well. A gentle maternal light shone in Sophia's face. And I'll tell him that he has a very brave and very kind father. My eyes started to burn. Ethan, Sophia suddenly stepped forward and hugged me. It was a light embrace, but it was warm. Thank you, she whispered in my ear. Thank you too, I said. Thank you for showing me the complexity of human nature and for helping me find my own path. Thank you for making me understand that even when you're surrounded by darkness, you have to hold on to the light. Sophia didn't stay long. She left the stock agreement on the table and drove away. I watched her car disappear over the horizon of the coastline, feeling a sense of peace I had never known before. That evening, Chloe came home from school. Hey, Ethan, anything interesting happened at the bookstore today? She asked as she dropped her backpack. Yeah, I said, ruffling her hair with a smile. A very special customer stopped by today. I picked up the folder from the table. Staring at the Aura Group letterhead, I knew what I had to do. I would accept this gift, not for myself, but for the child who was about to be born and to provide a more stable future for Chloe and me. But I would never go back to that world of conflict and intrigue. My future was here, in this little bookstore by this vast blue ocean. The end.